Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are going to start the second segment of the morning session. Probably as you have heard from Professor Heck, a recurring theme of what we do here is circular economy, and economy of circular economy is also important. So this segment is dedicated to financing circular economy projects. We have 4 speakers in this segment. Let us welcome our first speaker, Mr. Frank Siebert. He's the head of Sustainable Business Desk of BNP Paribas, Germany. And his topic would be green financing strategies of the banking sector for circular economy. Mr. Siebert, lectern is yours.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Frank Siebert. I'm head of sustainable business for BNP Paribas Group in Germany. And the topic of today is the green financing strategy for the banking sector and the circular economy. As we've heard from Professor Dr. Heck, I think circular economy is also about financing. And today I'm going through a little bit our strategies of how we define our role as a bank, both as our bank, but also I think as a global financial sector in terms of sustainability, and what role we can play in helping to basically propel circular economy. So let me start a little bit with an overview and advertisement. So BNP is a global bank. We are represented in 72 countries around the world. I think what is important to know that we have not retreated since 2008, the financial crisis, so we really have a global strategy and continue to apply that. But for us also sustainability means risk management, because we believe that climate change, as the academics have told us, is about to come. There will be effects, and we are also basically preparing ourselves and our clients to basically weather the storm and to help to transform their businesses. And I think that's a major theme here today. For us, sustainability is also a question of business strategy. Quick shot on Germany, although this is a global audience here, just to guide you a little bit through. So as a bank, we are basically in Germany since 1947. We are here with roughly 5,500 representatives, peoples. And we are really going through a number of projects. It's not just financing, it's also residential areas and commercial real estate we are very strong in. It's about car leasing, it's about leasing itself. And that all basically helps to explain also why we are very closely to the production of goods and the circular economy itself, because clearly it affects a lot of our clients, and we believe we can bring a lot of solutions for those clients. As I said, I think sustainability for us both is a business opportunity and a risk management tool. The reason is, as I said, we are global. We decided in 2015, in conjunction with the decision on COP21 in Paris, that clearly sustainability will be a key pillar of our strategies. We are committed to support companies in their ambition to basically adhere to the 2-degree scenario. We are focusing and adjusting more and more our credit strategies and lending strategies toward this one. And I think that will also explain why a little bit later we'll explain you the circular economy and I think the ambition we're having there. We've also basically used the SDGs as our compass, and the lack of a taxonomy, of a definition what is sustainable. We believe that the SDGs are very good guidelines, and I think we see them all lined up here. We are more aligning our lending strategies towards complying with a minimum of 1 SDG, ideally more. and we've committed to have a minimum of 50% of our risk-weighted assets allocated to financing adhering to the SDGs. Where currently it's roughly 17%, so we're clearly making forward. But we're also a big bank. We have 2 trillion in assets, so it will take a long time, but it will not stop. We also have dedicated fund for invest in startups and basically smaller companies which are focusing on transforming and transitioning. And here we are focusing mostly on smart energy grids and energy storage, because we believe this is a key success factor for the energy transition. As I said, for us, I think we have defined 3 main points where we believe the future economy will go to, and it will be impacted. That is, first of all, energy transition. I believe that we as a financial institution can basically support our client there, and at the same time support the achievement of a 2-degree scenario. We also believe that equality and inclusive growth needs to be more and more focus on our economic activities. Given that I think in a globalized world we see that inequalities do not basically help business. And I think therefore that's also recognition that having a more equality and inclusive growth around the world will also help to support business and actually make business sustainable. And we see the Yellow West movement in France. We see uprising challenges in Chile right now. So we see that basically business needs to find an answer to those questions as well. For today's topic, circular economy, I will focus on environmental sustainability. And all 3 factors, I think, we believe are part of what we see as a future economy. And I think our role we want to play there. This slide a little bit goes back to what Mr. Heck very good described, so I don't spend a lot of time on it, but it's clearly I think on the left side you see the Earth Overshoot Day. You cannot really read it, but it basically says that according to the European Union, we have been overshooting around May 10th, so clearly not sustainable from a European perspective, but also from a global perspective. And as was mentioned as well, that economic growth does not necessarily have to be measured in GDP, and if it continues, I think we will not be having enough resources, but also we will drown in waste. So I think topics Mr. Heck already alluded to, and I will come back to that in a minute. The way we see our role here as a financial institution is that we should help to basically move from a linear economy model of take, make and waste, which is not sustainable, to more circular economy. And the transition there is necessary to really reduce the risk, because it's not only about sustainability and resource allocation, but it's also the question of whether resources which are critical for companies in their production portfolio today will be available tomorrow, either not at the same price as today or in the availability. And we see, especially with basically the focus on the 2-degree scenario, but also water, which is, I think, another big challenge globally and regionally as well, that I think there's a real need to basically move away from the model which we're having today. The circular economy model essentially, as we already described, is, and the focus we are focusing on also our activities, is to basically change that. It relies on 3 models. I think it's first of all to change the design. I think it's really start engaging with the companies which we are financing to question whether their product design is sustainable, and it will help to basically pay tribute to the circular economy. It's also about really focus on development phase and question whether new materials can be applied. And I think this is where we are supporting companies. It's also the focus on the question whether products as produced can be reduced and recycled. And I will come back to that in a minute, why this counts for a bank, because that's a very critical path for us also to finance future companies. It's a question of a circular use model. Clearly, we see more and more currently startup, but also bigger companies trying to see a product as a service. And I think you might have heard yesterday about Light, also Light as a service. This is basically something which comes more and more into practice. The circular use model also raises question about ownership of products. Do I really need to own a car? Do I need to own a certain device? Or can I basically use it and then when I don't want to use it anymore, give it back and can be recycled? I think that's a question also that touches specifically financing solutions, because we are big in financing clients, retail clients with their cars, and our model also is in question if basically there's a different optimal use scenario. So for us, it's really a critical issue also to identify and early on trends in society in order to adjust our financing tools. And it also was mentioned, the after-use question. So is basically a product, can it just be wasted, or can it be used? Can materials included in there used in a different third, or can the product itself be used, or the materials in there? So this is all basically things which will touch our business model, and therefore we're very engaged into this model to early on identify companies which are helping to transform this economy. Our mission, therefore, is basically to support and accelerate our customers' and partners' development in this transition to a user's economy. In terms of financing, we are basically here to finance both startups but also institutional customers in the identification of these trends. We're helping to basically develop the sales strategies for this one and to finance those, especially for professional equipment manufacturers, distributors, and also software. And we are basically focusing on the management of fleets, especially basically, as I mentioned, car fleet is a big topic. It's also a question of transition from combustion engine to electro. There's a lot of investment needed initially, but there's also a lot of questions regarding batteries, technology. So this is all where basically we engage ourselves, because we are convinced that we have a role to play in sustainability, and that we can only grow sustainable if we can work together with our clients. Having a more European view, I think we believe that legislation plays a key role. We see some positive support, especially this year. The European Union passed 3 major laws or guidances which basically help to focus and give a regulatory frame at the European level to support the transition there. And we also believe that this is something which will be needed as a support in order to shift investments, but also usage, not just at the corporate level, but also, I have to say, at the consumer level. So what are the implications for banking and circular economy? Clearly, the circular economy is requires a lot of multiple forms of capital. There's a lot of transition, there's a lot of things which are tried new, so there's a lot of risk assessment to be done, and that's, I think, we believe we are good in, because we have a long tradition of financing the economy anyway, and we are ready to transform ourselves. We also believe that the cash flow optimization increases the financeability of circular business model. And that's why I mentioned it was very early on to understand is our products, our clients, are they able to transform their products in something which can be reused afterwards, because that ultimately will increase the financeability of the product at the design and production phase. It's also a question, that's a challenge for us, creditworthiness will have to be looked further, because normally in a linear model, you produce, you sell, and we finance the end product, and then it's been wasted afterwards. In a usage model economy, and where basically you have a product as a service, the creditworthiness of the person who uses it has to be assessed differently. So for us as a bank, it's a challenge. Can we assess both the product, can we assess the regulatory changes, and can we assess the creditworthiness of the underlying buyer? So that's a big challenge which I think we are taking. On the other side, value creation can be enhanced in a product, because if we think that a mobile phone is not just as good for the use of it, but also the ingredients can be used afterwards, the value proposition and assessment of the value of the underlying product is a different one than in today's economy, which helps us if we're financing leasing and other applications. Supply chain financing will be very important because, as we heard, resources are depleted earlier on every year. We have resource constraints in certain materials, but we also have a shift in transformation in the economy. I mean, having more electric appliances, electrifying our economy much more than we had so far, will require different materials, different earth and materials there. So we need also to see whether we can assess those materials and the after-use model. And finally, I think there's not just I'm representing a bank here, but there are other methods for financing as well. We see more and more companies so going for seed capital, so bypassing the traditional financial sector, approaching investors, also retail investors directly. We see neobanks like Google, Apple entering into a new phase of financing. So there's basically, together with a shift in the business model, there's also a shift in the financing market, which is quite interesting to see. Not always pleasant for us as a bank, but also that challenge we are taking. Coming back to BNP, why we believe that we are basically very well established to support this model, and not just on a German but also global basis, is that we really, as a universal bank, are basically very much involved in all aspects of banking. We start with basically the project financing. We go via the production phase, storage phase, transportation, but we are also in the retail and downstream sector. And we believe that is very important, also competitive advantage compared to other players in the market, because we span the whole world in 72 countries, as I said, and with the whole value chain. And this, I think we believe that it helps us to basically assess the risk and opportunities in the circular economy as it evolves. Now, I also like to give you two examples of, I think, where we have basically working together with our corporates in order to identify the opportunities to structure financing around the topic of circular economy and supply chain. And those are basically Puma, which I think you might, as a retail client, you might all know, and Helvetia, which you might not know. It's a smaller Swiss-based waste company, which is very innovative and is a consolidator in the market. As Mr. Heck said, it's not basically the business model to waste and to dump it, but rather to recycle. So these, I've selected those to you examples because I think they give a good view on where we're engaging into this one. And on a French way, I think we have a very strong development in the French law, and I think there's a lot of movement on the food side, especially, which is also a company which we are supporting. So on Puma, there we are not basically, Puma essentially doesn't produce. It basically has a network of global sourcing companies which they design the product, they license the product, and they basically transport and then sell the products into developed countries mostly and globally. And there we have basically developed together with them a system which allows their suppliers globally to improve their financing conditions if they improve on the ESG, environmental, social, and governance areas. The system is relatively complex. It involves the IFC, so we've basically also partnered with a very recognized and well-known global supranational company in order to give credibility to the project. And this scheme basically allows suppliers to constantly be rated on an annual basis by the IFC. And then if their rating improves, both on mostly environmental and social aspects, their financing cost with BNP, in this case, reduces. So we're actually supporting and incentivizing producers globally to constantly improve their product, improve the conditions of the workers, and also to improve the way they're designing or executing the design Puma is giving. So for Puma, it's a win-win because they continuously are able to listen to the market, see what the clients want, and give this to their suppliers in the design phase. And the suppliers are then encouraged financially as well to basically improve on that part. And that is, I think, is one system where we early on can support a global multinational company sourcing globally and selling locally in order to basically take environmental and social governance issues there, and also to help to support the circular economy, because we all know that the garments they are produced, the sneakers they are producing are clearly made from plastic mostly, using water a lot. So this is, I think, one thing we believe we can support, also the SDGs. And the second one is, and sorry, it's a little bit small print, but essentially it's a Swiss company which we supported with the first bond. It's a relatively small amount, but we were convinced by the story. And the story is that this recycling company is consolidating, buying smaller recycling companies, and putting into use new technology to reduce the waste which is accepted, which is already a challenge for them, because normally the more waste, the more volume, the more profit. But they have decided to rather engage with their clients and, as Mr. Heck said, make use of what is being normally dumped, recycle those products, and then basically also give back to the economy either the materials, the metals, and other ingredients. And we have been supporting this by going to the capital market, helping them to basically form a story, approach investors which were reluctant to invest into what is normally a very old school economy model, waste management, and deliver the story. And I think since then they have been growing exceptionally, because they've been able to buy other competitors to transform the model. And this is something where we believe, as a big global international bank with access to the capital markets investors, we can deliver also the access to the capital, which is very crucial, as Professor Dr. Heck mentioned. So in closing, I think I'd like to recap that we believe that circular economy is a clear must in an environment which is stressed, and I think you heard this earlier yesterday and today. We also believe that the linear economy model poses more risk than opportunities in an environment which is basically under a lot of environmental stress. But we also believe that the social dimension should not be underestimated, because the new forms of pay-as-use also allows maybe the population to have access to products and services where they don't have to upfront invest into it, but rather pay where they use. And that's also something which we believe is a very important part globally in the development. We also believe that the challenge of take, waste, and waste, as described before, is not sustainable, and it will basically also degrade our environment even further. But finally, we also believe that we will need political support. I think we've seen some initiatives on the plastic waste this year, and last year there was a lot of movement. Suddenly people realized that that kind of consumption pattern in plastic is not sustainable, and change behaviors. And that's something which will have very positive effect globally if and when really enacted. And closing, I think the financial sector is ready to support the circular economy. The message will be also the story needs to be right, it needs to be convincing, but money is there. Thank you for your attention.
Mr. Siebert, that's a tiny token of appreciation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Pardon me using some slang. In the corporate world, there is a saying, when money talks, bullshit walks. So there is no point having a lot of money if you don't have a place to invest. So our next speaker, Professor Dr. Amer Al-Hinai from one of our partner universities in Oman, he's going to expose you to the investment opportunities in Oman in green economy and circular economy sector. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. It's given me a pleasure to stand in front of you today to talk a little bit about the circular economy investment potential in Oman. And before that, I would like to thank my colleagues in AFAS, especially Professor Peter Heck and Professor Michael, for the invitation. Well, this is just like the outline that I'll follow during this presentation. I'll give a brief little bit introduction where I'm coming from, and then about the electricity sector in Oman, because that's a little bit of my background, what I'm going to talk about also. And then I'll talk about the waste to energy, where the circular economy potential is really high. And finally, I'll just put some slides about what's happening in my university, my home university. So this is Sultan Qaboos University, the place I'm coming from. I graduated from this school in 1997, and then I'm a faculty member right now there with the position of associate professor in the electrical and computer engineering, and also I'm the director of the Sustainable Energy Research Center. SQU has been classified to be among the top 10 in 2018 in the Arab region ranking. And if we look at the university, we have about 18,000 students and about 6,000 of staff members with 9 colleagues, 13 research centers, and we have a research fund that the university generates annually about $7 million US. 7 million reals. Well, that's a type of mistake. And then we have 6 research funding schemes from different venues there. And probably you can see in this chart that 27% of that fund coming from consultancy. So also the university doing lots of consultancy to the industry in Oman. And that's why the Sustainable Energy Research Center has been arrived to the picture, mainly because there is a high potential right now in the country to move toward renewables. It has been established in 2017, and with the focus mainly in sustainable energy. Since inception, we managed to generate some fund to the university in terms of research fund from different agencies there. This list of the projects that has been completed in red lines and those in black still ongoing projects, different fields related to energy. And these are some pictures from what we are doing there at the university. Okay, so let's go to the main topic, which is the electricity sector in Oman. So the sector has been restructured in 2005. It used to be a single owner, which is the Ministry of Electricity and Water at that time, or Housing, Electricity and Water at that time, where the ministry doing all the tasks. So they're doing generation, transmission, and distribution. The efficiency of the system was really in a worse condition. Losses used to be in a range of 24%, so we are losing almost like quarter of what we produce. We don't know where that's going. Apparently, of course, majority of it is what we call it commercial losses, so billing and technical losses as well. So the sector has been restructured in a way to segregate the 3 processes in terms of generation, transmission, and distribution. That, of course, help basically the sector to grow. And you're going to see in the coming slide how the sector has been growing there. The thing that's as shown in this map here, majority of the demand and load is in this area, the northern part. That's populated area in Oman. While in the middle here, it's almost nothing, with just few population. And then we have a little portion there, which is the Salalah area. This is the structure of what we call it the main interconnected system. So the main interconnected system is nothing more than a set of power plants, which is 100% private investment in Oman as IBBs. So it's IBBs projects. And then we have one transmission company and basically like 4 or 3 distribution companies there. All at the moment ownership for the government, but they are in the process to be privatized and to be basically sold in the market. The thing that we just need to consider out of this, that this sector represent, or this portion, the main interconnected system, represent 88% of the demand in Oman in terms of electricity. And it's 100% to natural gas at the moment. And that's the worst case, or the worst scenario that we have so far. Now, if we look at rural area, which is the middle area in Oman, which is this area where we have little population there and little portion also that Musandam area, it's almost 100% on diesel, because those are just nothing more than small islands of population with a small generator, diesel generator, to supply that load. And it's in many of these spots separated in that huge area there, and also in Musandam side. This represents almost 3% of the total demand in the country, but also consume a lot of diesel. And that's basically consume lots of subsidy, because electricity in Oman is still subsidized by the government almost by 70%. And diesel is very expensive compared to natural gas, especially when it goes in smaller scales. And then we have Dhofar power system or Salala power system, which is the southern part, which is about 9%. This is still in natural gas with 3 power plants in that area. Okay, so this slide might give us a little bit better picture of where is the distribution of the demands. As I said, 88% in those 3 distribution companies, which is in the northern part. And this is basically the middle area, and that's the southern part of the country. If we look at the type of loads we have, it is purely or almost residential. So the residential load represents 46%. And in terms of energy, and it represents about 74% in terms of number of accounts. The industrial load is about 15%, and then the commercial load is about almost like 11%. So that's the distribution there. Now, what is happening in the country? Of course, we have noticed that there is an increase in the population. So the blue one is showing the worldwide population, while the red one is in Oman. Of course, Oman is in that scale there, while the worldwide in that scale. But the thing is that there is increase in population happening, and that reflected an increase in terms of energy demand. So we see that slide is almost following the same trend there. The population in Oman so far is close to 4.7 million, where local people represent about 57%, while the expat people represent 42%. Okay. Of course, the demand or for the energy is not just in Oman. We can see it also worldwide in the same manner. This slide here showing what's happening in Oman in terms of electricity demand. So we could see that there is a substantial increase happen after the restructuring of the sector, because it's opened the door for more investment and more, of course, the GDP of peoples also increase, and then, of course, people start to building large villas, large factories, large commercial center, and then that's what's happening to the demand. And the other point is the peak demand which is happening during summertime. So majority of the load there is for air conditioning system when it comes to residential or commercial loads. So the AC or the air conditioning system is required, especially during summertime. Temperature can easily reach close to 50 degrees Celsius during summertime, and that's the moment where the demand of electricity becomes really high. So it reached more than 6 gigawatt in terms of, or 6,000 megawatt in terms of peak capacity. And the sector has to meet that peak. So no matter what, they need to build those large power plants to meet that demand. Now, once the summer deviate or once that peak time deviate, majority of our power plants are unutilized. The utilization ratio of those power plants, on average, less than 50%. Because of that variation between winter and summer demand, it goes almost like doubled or 3 times, compared between winter and of course that's not sustainable. That's add basically to the more gas and oil to be burned, and of course also add to the subsidy that the government is paying every year to the electricity sector. His Majesty in 2008 clearly, the leader of the country, clearly mentioned that we need to look for alternative resources for electricity, for energy, and as well of course for the food security as well. So in 2008, to translate His Majesty's vision, the regulator in Oman the electricity regulator decided to go for sort of an assessment for the energy resources in the country, and specifically for renewables. The outcome of that assessment that we, in terms of solar and wind, we do have lots of potential, and also other resources can be looked at in the later stage. Here is sort of comparison. If we just compare the case of Oman and Germany. In Germany, the installed capacity right now, or at least when these slides are created, it was more than 40 gigawatt in terms of capacity. It might be more than that at the moment. And if you compare to Oman, we have less than 150 megawatt. In terms of intensity of solar energy, we are almost double compared to Germany. And that's really shame. We feel shame of that. How come we have double amount of energy, but utilization is far away beyond what's happening in Germany here? Same thing for wind. So the installed capacity, again, when this slide is prepared at that time, 55 gigawatt of installed capacity. This figure might be more than that at the moment. In Oman, we have less than 60 megawatt. And we have really high potential for wind, especially in that area there. Now, the main problem, if you remember, that area, there is no population, and there is no network to evacuate that amount of energy. And that's one of the challenges we have. We believe wind is a potential, but at the moment, we cannot evacuate. Even if we build wind turbines in that area, there's no population in that area, and at the moment, of course, there is no interconnection between south and north. So what happened after that? The regulators did that study, and they started with initiatives. So they started in 2017 by floating what we call it SAHM project. That's for rooftop in buildings. And then also the electricity sector start implementing what we call it cost-reflective tariff. Cost-reflective tariff means the customers, large customers, they're supposed to pay the electricity without subsidy. Okay, even though there is still indirect subsidy in terms of gas, because the power plant, they receive the gas at subsidized price. But there is also a direct subsidy from the Ministry of Finance to the accounts. Now, large consumers, since 2017, they are no longer receiving what we call it subsidy. They are paying the actual cost, and that's applicable to three categories of customer, which is the industrial, commercial, and the government. Still, the residential customers are not included in this cost-reflective tariff. Then the energy policy also has been approved in 2017, so that we have a target at least. So the target now says in 2017, they decided to have, by 2025, we should have 10% of our energy consumed to come from renewables. And that stimulates basically the, what we call it, the effort by the electricity sector to start looking for renewables project. Before that, we didn't have that policy, and the electricity sector was relaxed. Then the regulator came up with sort of other initiatives like energy auditors programs. In 2018, there was an energy lab, which is basically like controlled by what we call it Tanfeed there. And they decided to also go for waste-to-energy projects. So the decision to consider waste-to-energy was being taken in 2018. 2019, the Minister of Oil and Gas becomes the one who's doing the policy. It's like the Minister of Energy in the country there. And they came up with a new target by 2030. So by 2030, we should have 30% of the resources to be coming from non-fossil resources. So non-fossil resources probably will be renewables and waste-to-energy projects. Also, 2018, the regulator, which is early this year, came up with the initiative of energy efficiency projects. And 2019, this year, we'll be commissioning the first wind farm or wind power plant, which is a 50 megawatt. It's in the process to be commissioned probably this month or the coming month. Now, since the target has been set up by the government, then the OBWB, which is Oman Power and Procurement Company, the energy planner for the country, they came up with a plan, and this plan showing that almost starting from 2021 will be commissioning like a 500 megawatt of solar all the way until we reach 2024. So there will be every year we're going to have a 500 megawatt of solar plants, and then there is a plan for wind projects. That wind project will come in late at 2024 with the aim that there will be an interconnection between south and north. So this is some picture from what's happening right now in the wind farm in southern part of the country. We are installing 13 turbines, each of 3.8 megawatt. Those considered to be one of the largest wind turbines for inshore. The first solar project has been awarded. So Aqua Power is the one which will be building the first solar power plant, which is a 500 megawatt in the northern part. And of course, as I mentioned, there are many others are coming. So if you look at the slide, there is already a plan for another 4 power plants, solar, each in a range of 500 megawatt of capacity. There is wind coming in Duqm area, which is in the middle area, and there is also additional wind coming in Salalah region. In addition, there will be a transmission line that will be connecting south to north, and that will help us to evacuate energy back to the main load center, which is the northern part of Oman. This is what we call it SAHM project, which is again the rooftop initiative. So it was announced in 2017, and because of the subsidy, it was not really flying a lot, because when we talk about customers from residential area, they are getting subsidy of electricity. That's why it didn't stimulate that much. But in 2019, also the regulator decided to go a little bit further with what we call it SAHM 2, in a way that they are calling an investor to come and install PV panels in the rooftops of the buildings, and the customer will pay nothing. He will be using that electricity almost free of charge, and at the same time, that investor will be selling that energy to the government. Now, what this would help, of course, to reduce the peak, which is happening during the daytime. So it will help to reduce the investments in transmission, in generation, and in distribution. That will where the government will benefit from. And at the same time, of course, we are reducing the emission. In terms of oil and gas industry, because it's the main industry in Oman, oil and gas, the main company decided to go for renewables to produce steam. The southern part of the country, oil is very heavy oil, and it cannot be extracted with traditional techniques. They have to use what we call it steam injection to produce the oil. They used to produce that steam by either like burning gas or either by electric boilers. And then they figure out there is, of course, too much demand for gas, and then they decide to go for renewable resources. This is sort of innovative idea to use CSP, concentrated solar thermal mirrors. It's CSP, but it's put also they put it in a sort of a glass house. Why they are putting in a glass house? Because that region is with really harsh environment. So it's dusty, lots of wind, what we call it, sandstorms. And of course, the wind will just like require a huge investment in the structure to keep those mirrors in place. So to avoid all of that cost, they decided to put this solar, what we call it, glass house to protect. And the efficiency of the system shown in a pilot project, very attractive in terms of amount of steam that is produced. So that's why they decided to go now with a full project, which is about 1 gigawatt, considered to be the largest at the moment worldwide as a CSP project in one location. And this is a picture just to show you how much amount of land, of course, they are going to consume. We don't have a problem with the land, by the way. The desert area is just like empty space at the moment. Then also the oil company decided to go with the first PV system. It's 105 megawatt project. It will be commissioned next year the first or the second quarter of the next year, and that also would help them to also meet their demand in terms of electricity. With respect to waste management, and that's basically the other part of my presentation, in Oman, we do have a waste management company. That's a government-owned company to manage the waste. It has been established in 2009. But before 2009, of course, we have a miserable situation in terms of waste management. The case of Oman until now is just like what we call it the linear process. So it's take, make, and dispose. So right now we are not getting use of any resources in terms of waste. And if we look at the hierarchical waste management in Oman, it's just flip upside down. So if you look at there, majority is going to disposal. We do almost nothing in the above 3 items which we're supposed to reduce or reuse or recycle. Nothing at the moment. So the potential is really high to look at those at this area. This graph showing the situation since 2010 and the projected also amount of waste per capita. We could see that the amount of waste is continue to increase, and then until it will reach that, we expect to reach that steady state there. But still, it is a huge amount of waste. So if we look at it, it's 1.85 million tons in 2015 alone. And then it has been calculated to be 1.2 kilogram per day per capita, and that's really huge. That's a lot if you compare it to any other country probably. If you look at the amount of, or the classification of the waste, according to analysis has been by BIA. BIA is the waste management company, as I said. We see that almost like 27% is a food waste. Food waste which can be easily converted to biogas, to fertilizers, to many other advantages through those projects. That's considered to be more than 50 million rial per annum in terms of amount of that waste. In addition, of course, to other type of waste like plastic and other type of waste that can be still used as well. Other type of waste also, which is not municipal waste. So that what I show you in this slide is what we call it municipal waste composition. But also we have other type of waste, like used tires, 38,000 tons, construction material, about 735,000 tons, and we have also what we call it the hazardous waste is there about 1.5 tons as well. This is the situation in Oman, at least before 2009. You can see how those landfills there, unorganized landfills, and that, of course, harm the environment a lot. We see the camels, just like it's open area, so the camels can go there, animals can go there, and that will, those animals will eat plastic, will eat any hazardous area there. These are pictures of some of the landfills that has been closed now. This is another picture for some of the old landfills. People just throw anything there. Even food waste there as well. And lots of leaking to the environment, and this is one of the harms part of when it starts to, because we in Oman we don't have water resources apart from desalination and underground water, and this will poison immediately the underground water. Dangerous waste like hazardous waste of hospital being thrown in the same with the domestic waste in the landfills. Even the construction material waste, and nobody getting use of that. And of course, not a surprise to have fires. So fires, just like we can find it from one landfill to another, it happens frequently because of that situation. And lots of more. I mean, I'm not gonna go, but we have lots of these bad images, I would say, about the waste in Oman. Now, since 2009, things start to improve. So we used to have more than almost 390 landfills at that time. All of them has been closed now and been replaced with what we call it engineering landfills. So engineering landfills in a way that they have a sealed at least area from leaking, so there's no leaks to the environment. It's controlled. It's Basically, nobody can access those landfills, so it protects animals, protects people also, and it is much way organized at the moment. Now, the next step, of course, is to start or to get use of that waste, and that's where the circular economy could play a place in this environment. So that state, or what we're supposed to do, basically, right now we are going in this direction only. Still, it's just like we collect and to the landfills. Well, landfill has been improved; it becomes engineering landfills, but in between we do nothing at the moment. While the chance is there for sorting, there is, of course, for waste to energy. We could do a lot on this. This is the waste management hierarchy that we should really follow. At the moment, we are far away from this, as I mentioned, but we are in the process to switch there. So, 2018, when the waste to energy project green light was initiated or has been given. Immediately, the waste management company BIA, they start with the first evaluation for the waste management project, and the idea, of course, at this stage is to incinerate this municipal waste, and then, of course, generate heat, and from that heat we produce steam to electricity. And then we need to control, of course, that process there, so lots of filtration to avoid any impact to the environment. So 2018 or 2016 to 17, the first study has been done, and 2018, the OBWB, the company which is Energy Planner, floated the first tender floated the tender to look for the tariff scheme of this waste to management, waste to energy projects, and we expect next year to have at least the tender for the company to come and bid for building this plant. Of course, there is another initiatives has been done in individual stage between BIA and, for example, cement factory. So they are providing them, for example, like what we call refused derived fuel, in a way that BIA is just like sending the waste to and specifically, if I remember well, it was the tire waste being sent to the cement factory, and they burn it, of course, for their heat requirement there. The oil company also working closely now with BIA to provide them again with the waste. And again, there waste can be converted to heat, and that heat can be used directly for steam injection projects. Biogas is something still not mature enough in Oman. At least we're trying to consider like organic waste to produce biogas. Again, from municipal waste, it can be converted, organic waste can be converted to gas, and that gas can be, of course, used to generate co-generation of electricity, but also it can produce organic composite for farmers. BIA is expecting now to start with 10 projects at least, running between 0.5 to 2 megawatt in terms of electricity generation capacity for the biogas. They are targeting rural areas, but also they are looking for other areas within the country. Now, if we look at SQ case, and this is another part of my presentation. In early this year, in March 2019, we have invited EFAS to come to sort of evaluate our campus, Sultan Qaboos University campus. In the university, we have a strategic plan to convert our campus to be a green campus, or what we call it zero-emission campus. But then for that strategy, of course, we need sort of a plan. And we get the help of EFAS team to help us to come up with that plan. So the first or the initial evaluation from EFAS, it just like show us those figures. We know some of these figures, but some of them really for us it was something new. And they gave us the potential, of course, to consider in terms of generation of electricity using renewables, in terms of using using waste to energy projects like biogas project could be there, treatment of water waste treatment plant, and so on. So the university's campus is, if we look at in terms of space, the campus is about 6 kilometers square in terms of area. As I mentioned, about 18,000 students there. Also, we incorporate the university hospital within the campus as well. We are working closely with BIA, and the first target is to reduce the waste within the university. So we came up with reuse center. So the first reuse center will be built in the campus. The reuse center will, of course, utilize some of the furniture and the equipment that is not used right now by the university, because in the university we have residential area for student, residential area for staff member, and then lots of furniture is coming out, clothes and so on. And BIA also will help us to provide source for the center from outside as well. And the idea, of course, to improve the awareness of our students. We have students from all over the country, and that would help to improve the awareness within the students. Then we are working for one of the recommendations that coming from EFAS is to produce electricity. We have lots of car parks in the campus, and at the moment some of them are unshaded. So we're looking to have a shade for those car parks with solar PV. So we're going to gain shaded parks in our region. The hot temperature is really requires sort of shade for cars there. So we expect to produce about 14 megawatt in terms of capacity from those solar car parks, and in addition about 5.5 megawatt from the rooftop of the buildings. In total, we'll be able to produce almost 30% of our demand or of our consumption. The consumption of electricity within the campus is about 122 gigawatt hour annually. So that will allow us to produce almost 30% from those solar PV systems. In addition, we are working also with BIA, the waste management company, to build probably one and the first, of course, biogas plant within the campus with a capacity of 2 megawatt. And again, this plant by itself will produce about 10% of our energy demand, in addition, of course, to fertilizers for the landscaping for the campus. We are working for also energy efficiency projects. So as I mentioned at the beginning, probably if you remember, the major demand or the major energy or electricity demand for AC, for an air conditioning system. So working with Siemens right now to reduce the consumption of those AC systems by using variable speed drive, by using energy management, inbuilt energy management to control, for example, the starting and shutdown of those AC systems. That's expected to reduce the consumption in this pilot project by 20%. So the energy efficiency can be reduced, or the energy demand can be reduced in the building by 20%. And again, that will be another achievement with respect to that. So that's the initiatives that's happening right now at the university. So in summary, we can say that the electricity sector in Oman is growing and continue to grow. The growth rate used to be about 9%, recently just dropped a little bit to 6%, but still that growth will continue in the coming years. Oman had put a target, so 10% by 2025, and then it will be 30% by 2030 in terms of diversifying from fossil fuel. So we are deviating from fossil fuel to and give better value of those fossil fuel instead of just burn it to generate electricity. Circular economy via waste to energy management or waste to energy projects will play a major role in the energy mix, and we believe that that's one high potential for controlling the energy mix in Oman. And with respect to SKU, as I mentioned, you have seen those 4 projects in terms of solar power generation, in terms of biogas project, as well as the reuse center and the energy efficiency. I think I'm going beyond the time, so this will be the last slide. And thank you for your attention. I just want to put those are the upcoming conferences that will happen in Sultan Qaboos University. You are welcome to join us if you have the chance. One of them is the first hydrogen conference in Oman. in 2021, and also there is a World Renewable Energy Congress also in 2021. Thank you very much.
No, that's fine, Prazamba. Thank you so much. That's a tiny token.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, sorry that we are not entertaining any questions and answers right now. We are slightly behind the schedule, but the presenters are available with us throughout the day. Unfortunately, Mr. Siebert told me that he might leave by about 2. Raise all your questions to them during lunch and maybe during the breaks. So by now, probably you know added value and regional added value is very important to circular economy. And also biomass play a big role in circular economy. Therefore, we have invited the Minister of Bono region of Ghana, Ms. Kumi Richardson, to give us some insights of how they utilize biomass to create added value in Ghana. Ms. Richardson, lectern is yours. And also, if I may add, I'm told that Mrs. Richardson will be assisted by Dr. Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, my brother. Our presentation is going to be in 2 folds, as has been announced to you. I'm going to give a political overview of the region in which we are in Ghana, and then the technicalities of the presentation will be done by my colleague. So permit me to go through all the protocols. Thank you. Madam President, Professor Dr. Schumann, our chairman, Professor Dr. Peter Hecht, faculty members of the Institute for Applied Material Flow Management, IFAS, distinguished participants from other countries, ladies and gentlemen. I extend a warm greetings to you all from Ghana. It is indeed a privilege and an honor to be here at this August forum. We are here to give a brief presentation of the enormous potential for biomass development and utilization in the Bono East and Ahafo regions of Ghana for sustainable development. It is important to, first of all, mention that 2 administrative regions have recently been created out of the now defunct Bono Ahafo region after a very successful referendum. Consequently, a total of 3 administrative regions, namely the Bono region, the Bono East region, and the Ahafo regions are now in place. Together, these regions consist of 29 political and administrative divisions made up of 10 municipalities and 19 districts, nestled in the most semi-deciduous ecological zone of Ghana, with a population of approximately 3 million people. Professor Chair, woody biomass, that's charcoal and firewood, is a significant energy source for about 54 to 71% of urban households in the region. Its production and marketing create about 144,000 permanent jobs, and it is a variable commercial fuel with an annual turnover of about $60 million at current market price. Woody biomass is also dominantly used in rural households, with more than 80% of rural families depending on it for cooking and heating. Ladies and gentlemen, about 90% of the wood fuel is obtained directly from natural forests, and the remaining 10% from logging, sawmill residue, and planted furrows. Sources of wood fuels are depleting at an alarming rate because of unsustainable production practices and marketing that result in very high levels of waste. Rapid depletion of forest resources is wiping away the sources of livelihood for many rural dwellers, which must be a source of worrying to all of us. Despite the enormous benefits that are associated with the utilization of woody biomass, such as economic opportunities in the societies, the improvement of air quality, as well as the general well-being of the people, the government of Ghana has become increasingly concerned about the state of the country's wood fuel resources. However, one of the main challenges facing the subsector is how to ensure sustainable production, marketing, and consumption. The contribution of a small-scale woodlot in meeting the energy demand for rural, peri-urban, and urban, as well as the skills required for their establishment, are yet to be fully explored and tapped for the benefits of our communities. Ladies and gentlemen, sustainable management of woodlot species in plantations could restore the degraded landscapes, ensure regular supply of woody biomass, reduce biodiversity loss, and integrated with other economic species, and offset carbon emissions by serving as carbon sinks. In addition, technologies such as improved cook stoves and kilns that would contribute to maximizing the utilization of biomass materials should be explored to secure livelihood opportunities for many rural communities and women in particular who struggle to take care of themselves and their families. The sources of biomass in our region are enormous and include agriculture and forest residues, municipal waste, wood slabs and waste, sawdust and empty fruits, bunches, food and feed crops, energy crops, organic waste, wood, bagasse, straw, and forest residues. The sustainable use of bioenergy could contribute significantly to the socio-economic status of many rural residents. It could become a significant source of employment and provide livelihood opportunities for many communities in line with Sustainable Development Goals 1, 2, 8, 13, and 15 of the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, as you may be aware, the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is co-chair of the eminent group of SDGs advocates, and therefore the achievement of the goals in giving top priority in all facets of socio-economic development in the country. It is for this purpose that the Regional Coordinating Council continues to partner our key collaborators, particularly our education and research institutions, to ensure that the goal of sustainable management of the region's biomass resources are achieved. Professor Chair, ladies and gentlemen, Professor Emmanuel Oponi-Frimpong. The Pro VC, that's the Pro Vice Chancellor of the University of Energy and Natural Resources, Sunyani, Ghana, will provide further details in the ensuing presentation. Thank you so very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, my Honorable Minister. Thank you, Mr. President, Madam President of the University, and Professor Heck for making it possible for us to be here today. We appreciate this opportunity and take you through our presentation. He's touched on most of the things that I will talk about, so I think I'll move fast. Yes, some of you may, when you talk about Africa, is this? The pointer? The pointer. Okay. That's the one. Okay. Yeah. Ghana is located in West Africa. And as my minister said, the whole of this area used to be one region. And the forest, the high tropical forest of Ghana is located here. And then the rest of the country is savanna woodland. And most of the biomass charcoal business is in this part of the country. And so it's a major business for her region. And so our presentation will go through this sort of content that most of it has been touched on. Biomass generally, as we are all aware, contributes a lot to providing energy to, by heating, providing power, fuel, and everything that really takes care of our energy needs. And in particular in developing countries, this is a major source of energy. Biomass is considered as important renewable energy resources globally, and the United Nations really makes, because of developing countries' challenges, makes this a very important that the whole global world has to look at. It could be converted into other forms of useful raw materials apart from the energy. And energy from biomass contribute approximately 10% of the energy needs globally. But when you come to the developing countries, it may contribute up to 70%. And then when you look at a rural household, it contributes up to 81% of the energy needs of the people. When you come to Ghana specific, 64% of even the urban communities depend on biomass for energy. And as the minister stated, it provides jobs up for over 144,000 people. And over 3 million rural folks depends on it as their main source of energy. And the growth rate for the need for biomass energy is about 1.2% in Ghana. Biomass, which looking at charcoal and firewood production, has been a major livelihood source for our region. That is the Bron East, Bron, and then Ahafo. And with the biomass business thrives so well in this region because most of the youth, that is the only source of job. And but the source of materials to sustain this business is dwindling, and agricultural lands are also becoming infertile. So keeping this business in place will sustain a lot of lives. if you look at the potential sources of biomass resources in Ghana, it will include the forest resources, agricultural waste, sewage, and recently there has been a company in Accra that is trying to convert biomass from municipal waste into briquettes. And the economy of Ghana is growing into middle income status, and that requires a lot of energy to really grow the economy. And looking at the energy mix that requires for growth, we can't do away with biomass, development of the biomass source of energy for our country. And access to sustainable renewable energy is becoming a problem due to urgent need to rapidly help in carbon emission response to the high negative impacts of climate change. And the transition zone, as I indicated in the map that I showed, Ghana is a major source of wood fuels for the entire nation, because most of the tropical forest is harvested for timber mostly, and then the middle belts and then the savanna region, the wood biomass there is used for energy production or charcoal production in most cases. The result is that producers have to now look for wood for charcoal production for their livelihood, traveling long distances to have access to wood. And charcoal production requires a lot of raw wood material, and that if they harvest any tree, just one part of it end up as the production or the charcoal that they need, because the kind and type of the way they produce the charcoal create a lot of waste. So there is a need to develop technologies that will help to maximize opportunities that is in this biomass business. And this is typical roadside business that we have in some of these communities in Ghana. That's bags of charcoal being sold. And there are a lot of prospects to develop the biomass energy business in Ghana. Apart from the direct use of fuel wood and charcoal, there are other opportunities that need to be exploited. Biomass used for the generation of electricity, biogas, liquid fuels remains largely untapped because we lack the technology. Some biomass fire cogeneration projects have been implemented on a small scale in oil palm industry, and some of the timber companies also have it on that small scale. Two key factors have hindered the exploitation, particularly wood processing industry, although there seems to be some potential in it. First, the potential to cogenerate could have access to lower cost grid power. There was a company that was established, I think originated from Norway, and they wanted to use biomass to generate power. The issue is that kilowatt price for biomass energy compared to what is available now, it looked like the business was going to be unprofitable. So they've established huge plantations in the transition in our region, the Blue East region. But as of now, they've not been able to generate power from the biomass or the plantation that they established. Secondly, there are virtually no financial support, as the bankers presented here today. Financing is an issue. According to Energy Commission of Ghana, the national wood stock for fuel is estimated is huge. 813 million tons that can be used per year. Approximately 18 million tons of the wood fuel is produced annually, but about 90% of the wood fuels are obtained directly from the natural forest. And the remaining 10% comes from offcuts from sawmills and other. And then biodiesel production from oil palm has also been seen as a good source of bioenergy. This has led to Ghana being seen as a potential source to have biodiesel production in Africa from oil palm. And of all the factors mentioned in support of the use of biomass for energy, the most important one is contribution, achievement, the Sustainable Development Goals in Africa. The United Nations has come up with a chart looking at the different areas that biofuel or bioenergy can contribute to addressing some of the issues in Africa, like no poverty, partnership, quality education, almost all the 17 development goals have some area that biomass energy can contribute to addressing Africans' issues. Biomass is essential in our region. Here they are found in most this transition zone, as I've talked about. Charcoal and firewood provide jobs for many rural areas in the region. There have been significant shortfalls in production due to resource depletion, because you just go to the natural forest, cut and come and burn. And so this is affecting many rural families who rely on this as their main livelihood. And these are the various districts that the regional minister mentioned. And this is its rural, this is even the city, the regional capital, that is Charcoal Market. And you can see a number of people who have to get charcoal in order to really get some energy in their homes to cook. Sustainable management of wood fuel species in plantations and agroforestry programs could restore degraded landscapes, ensure regular supply of biomass, reduce biodiversity loss, and offset carbon emission by serving as carbon sinks. And this is what researchers and scientists, we are making efforts to address. This strategy could provide secure livelihood opportunities for many rural communities, women and particularly who struggle to take care of their families. Major producers of biomass and biomass fuel are women in Ghana. And this is a typical research that we conducted with some tree species. These are about 9 months old seedlings that we planted in the field in an agroforestry system to help the rural communities to really be able to grow their own source of biomass for their business. Wood fuel production is an important strategy for poverty alleviation, as already identified by United Nations goals. It could also help to reduce gender and cultural-based inequalities and their effect on access to and utilization of wood fuels. Wood fuel production could significantly contribute to climate change and mitigation and adaptation. The potential for wood fuel production to adopt short rotation tree species on tree farms as a source of raw material is very high, and we need to exploit it. This is basically a rural nursery that we established in order to help people to establish agroforestries where they can continue to have biomass for their livelihood is some of the research we conducted. And we did carbon sequestration analysis, and you could see the potential is so high if this is encouraged. Charcoal is widely used in Ghana and exported. Some people are in the export business now for charcoal from Ghana. And the production of biomass pellet feedstock is emerging as an attractive venture for a number of people and small businesses now. Based on the source of biomass pellet production. The biomass pellet market is segmented into wood, sawdust, agricultural residues, and as I said, now we even have those using urban waste to provide pellets as a source of biomass energy. The biomass pellet usage is classified into power generation, industrial heating, and those things. And still, this is the charcoal business. This truckloads of charcoal to the cities. Biomass pellet market will grow across various geographical regions as recorded by some sources of United Nations and FAO documents that we have access to. And Ghana is well positioned to embrace this initiative as many of our agricultural produce could be used effectively for this purpose. There is availability of these types of biomass from agriculture and all sort of farming activities that we have: maize, rice, cocoa, which is our major source of income or export to Ghana, oil palm, coconuts, and the other sources of farm materials. The support from government, state regulators, cost efficiency and low environmental impact, and staggering improvements in technology are achieved, driving the market growth. Increasing government efforts to promote adoption of biomass energy and commercial energy generation to meet the rising energy demand is also helping in this direction. Strengthening regional and international cooperation and integration to facilitate the large-scale biomass production and transmission is important, and we are looking forward to collaboration and cooperations like this to really get technology transfer to support this industry in Ghana. Better management of biomass resources for effective use and revenue generation is key. Also, government support such as funding programs and government grants, tax reliefs, and other things will really support this industry. Adoption of biomass recovery and its conversion to energy sources could offer industries with various benefits that include high efficiency potential and order to really explore its full potential. Implementation policies, measures supporting sustainable biomass production and utilization, as well as exports drive, need to be supported seriously in order to create more opportunities. And this is the University of Energy and Natural Resources. At our recent graduation, the president and the minister for education, and then this is a minister for labor relations, were all present at our graduation. We have chiefs and other people that came for the program. And the university was established in line with energy needs of the country, energy and natural resources. And so this presentation or this forum is a perfect one to grow our networks and relationships at the global level, say that we will. I started just 8 years ago, so we are that young, but the potential is huge. And so when such opportunities come for us to network with others, we quickly buy into it. And hopefully, being part of this team next year, I think we will provide more data, more figures in relation to energy, biomass utilization in Ghana. And this was the same graduation program that the president gave award to a couple of our students. And I would like to thank you for your attention and looking forward to this forum every year. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will have to speed up a bit. Sorry, we are slightly behind the schedule. Let's welcome our last speaker of this session before we break for lunch. Let me invite Mr. Karim Bodion, CEO of Lycon Finance. He's going to give us some useful insights to green investment in the energy sector of Senegal. Mr. Karim, stage is yours.
How do I show it? Okay. Thank you very much. I use this opportunity to thank very much the president of this institute and Professor Peter Heck for giving me this opportunity to present you a way of financing, because when we're talking about project finance implementation of let's say, the sustainable project, we need financing. That financing, there is a tool, you have several financing models, but I will today concentrating on hold on please, can you show me how to go further? Yeah, this side, thank you. Show you that we have a possibility of, let's say, a financing that offer best advantages, what we call ECA. The ECA are agencies, credit agencies that are owned by the Europeans, like in Germany, you have Hermes, in Sweden, you have EKN, you have COFAS in France and everything. You can use those ECA owned by European government to finance your project. So the ECA can simplify your access to financing. When you have a project, it will be financed at 85%, and the 15% is a down payment. So the Export Credit Agency can support you. The interest rate is very attractive, and let's say it is faster to put in place. So we work with them, and we can assist anyone who is willing to benefit from a financing for a project. It has a minimum amount, and it has also some requirement that I'm going to make a detail for you. So this is what I'm talking about when I say ECA can only finance you up to 85% of the project. The 15% of the project needs to be paid by the client as a down payment. But that down payment, it is important, the 85% is some ECAs like EKN, they can finance 100% of the 85% portion. The 15% portion, as I said, it will come by the client. But Hermes will finance you 95% on the 85%, but the 5% has to become with the client. So it's very important as a detail. So here, all sectors can be funded. We're talking about commodity finance. It means that if you take goods from Germany or Italy or the Netherlands, it can be financed for 180 days. Or if it is capital goods, 3 to 5 years. A turnkey project with a volume exceeding 15 million, you have it up to 10 years. Equipments, let's say equipments for power station is between 12 and 15 years. Those are the advantages given by the ECA. Then you have now the export financing. The export financing from the ECA government's project. You will need let's say a European sponsor. That means that you need a European exporting company. If I'm taking the ECA from the European Union countries, you have ECA from the US, you have the ECA from Korea, from Australia, from Canada, etc., etc. So if you take an ECA from European, let's say from Europe, like Hermes, you will need to have a sponsor like a German company or a European Union member exporter. It can be a supplier of equipments. So then we have here the expertise. We are, let's say, an advisory project finance company that can be giving you the advice how you can build up the ECA until you have the financing and make your project as a reality. So we are dedicated to a hands-on structuring approach by advising the client from A until he finishes the project finance that he needs to get the financing. Now, here you have now the down payment, as I said in the beginning, and you have also when you will start repaying the loan, because when you get the financing, there is a period where you will start repaying the loan. You have a grace period of 2 years. After 2 years now, you will start the repayment of the loan. Here now you have about ECA political and economic risk non-fulfillment of the loan, the conditions, and anyone who wants to have this presentation, I will be ready to share it by email or whatever it is, or questions. I'm willing to go into details. So you have here the European Export Credit Agency, as I said, all of them, they give an insurance. That insurance is paid by the client, but that insurance will help you now to have the financing up to 85% of the total contract amount. So as an example, for 15 million euro, you can see the table as we explain it. What is covered and what is not covered on the 85% and the down payment. And this is how the financing can be done. ECA is regulated by the OECD consensus. It means that Organization for Economical Cooperation and Development. The member countries are there, and you need to follow those rules. That means environmental impact study, where I'm seeing a role from IFAS, can work together to assist the potential client to make the feasibility study on the ECA, let's say, studies. This is now, it means that the principal sum of export, credit to be repaid, illegal installment, principal to be repaid, first installment, and here you have the maximum for how many years, let's say the product size and how many years you need to repay. You have all here. The longer term also are possible, it depending on case-by-case project. ECA cover premium, it means that you will pay a premium. That premium it depends on the country where you come from. If I take a country like Senegal, it is on category 5. If you go to OECD.org, you will see the country classification, where every country is linked to the political risk. You need to take what we call a PRI, a political risk insurance, that cover the investment period. So the countries are classified, and based on that classification, then there is a premium that you need to pay to cover the loan that the banks are giving you. Commercial bank, DFIs, we call them development financial institutions. The development banks can also finance, let's say the commercial bank can finance the ECA together with the ECA agency. So these are what you need to fulfill, and then after, when you are applying for a credit, and then you have the competition, the floating rate. Well, ECA rates are very competitive. It depends from 1% up to 5 or up to 4% per annum, depending also on the tenor. Here, for example, when you buy some ambulance, what ECA will finance and what will be the down payment, this is what we give as an example. So thank you very much. And it is a short presentation. Now that you need to go to lunch. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly put your hands together and give a big round of applause to all the presenters of this segment. Now it's time for lunch. Before I let you go out, I have to kindly request you to come back after enjoying your lunch by 2. So we'll try to stick to the schedule. We have roughly about 1 hour, 10 minutes. Thank you so much. You exit this building, turn to your right, and then walk across, and then the next building, you will see your buffet. Thank you. Enjoy your lunch.